Welcome back to the Partnership Mastermind podcast, where we unpack what actually works in SaaS partnerships. I'm your host, Chris Levoie. Today's guest is someone I've worked with firsthand, someone who's not just in the ecosystem, but helping shape the infrastructure that powers it. Thrilled to be joined by Christina Flaschen, CEO and founder of Pandium, the only code-first iPaaS that helps SaaS companies build, launch, and scale integrations faster than ever. I've seen this firsthand as a customer of Pandium during my time at Gorgeous and saw how powerful this approach is for real partnership execution. She's not your typical founder. She's highly technical, product-minded, deeply experienced in the trenches of integration delivery. And today, we're going to dive into the messy truth behind SaaS integration programs, why cross-functional alignment fails, and why attribution can sometimes be the biggest lie in partnerships. Welcome to the show, Christina.
Thank you so much for having me. Always fun to talk.
Amazing. Cool. Well, let's get into it. First, we're gonna warm into it, right? So we have every guest answer a few quick hitter questions just to get to know you a little bit better. First thing that come to mind. Ready for that?
Let's go.
Sweet. All right, here we go. First question. What was your first job and what's a key lesson from that has stuck with you today?
So my very first job was fast food when I was 14 and a half.
Nice.
And I stayed with that job actually through most of college, paid my way through school, working as a manager of a couple locations. And what did that job teach me? So our operator, which was like the owner of those franchises, was also the youngest in the entire system. I think he was probably in his early 20s when he hired me. So I think a thing it taught me was that you don't have to be the expert. You just have to work really hard. And you can kind of look atypical when it comes to being a business owner, being a founder, being a leader.
I love that. That's clearly served you well. Cool. Next up, what's something people wouldn't expect about you outside of work?
People, if they've talked to me for more than a little bit of time, would know this, but I always use it as my fun fact. We foster kittens. So my husband and I have fostered over 80 neonatal kittens. So the little bottle babies, which means that you have to get up every 2 hours all night long. And we are not actually crazy cat people, or we weren't before, but love doing rescue work. If you're in New York and you need a kitten or you're interested in fostering, definitely hit me up. I got all the hookups for the perpetual kitten machine.
Wow, that's definitely a good one. And just before we jumped on air, Christina inadvertently had to just grab a kitten and then get it out of her office. So I saw firsthand, but I love the passion for it. Sweet. Next up, we're getting more into the partnership realm now. What's a partnership's hot take that would potentially cause a stir on LinkedIn? Maybe a bit of a contrarian view.
I'm going to go with one for really early companies and say that relying on one or two partnership channels to make your business is not a good bet, or very rarely a good bet. Extremely volatile. I've seen a lot of companies that are really focused on getting that one big partner and think that that's going to make their entire business. It's really hard to make that work. I'm sure you've seen that too.
Yeah, that's a good one. We'll unpack that a bit more later. I think that's often a symptom of who you bring in to be your quote unquote first partnerships leader, so to speak, because they only know what they know, right? I cut my teeth in tech partner strategy. So in the leadership roles I've been hiring into, that's honestly where I start. So I think that's where more senior level leadership, including the CEO, has to come in and say, you know what, that's your expertise, but all the signals are showing that we should actually probably diversify into these other channel types. I like that. Cool. Second last one here is, what's one partner play or SOP or playbook that you'd never run again?
And I think we'll talk about this a bit later, but having the partner team or a product team run partnerships, or a partner team running the integration side of technology partnerships. It's actually two totally separate motions.
I definitely co-sign with that, as we'll unpack a little bit later on. So that's going to be a fun conversation. Last one here, and then we'll get into the fun stuff, is who is one operator in the space that you think more people should be learning from?
I always enjoy my conversations with Casey Armstrong from ShipBob. I just love his management style. We've been working with him for years. I was lucky enough to be introed to him way back when Pandium was a little baby company. And watching that company evolve and seeing what they've done in the market has just been really awesome. And every time I work with anyone that works with Casey or rolls up into him from a management structure, they're delightful, high-performing people. So he's definitely doing something right there.
Yeah, I definitely co-sign that for Casey. I've always admired his leadership style. Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, is famous for how long he listens before he speaks in meetings. And, those who are privileged to have interacted with Casey, he does this similar thing where he's not talking a whole lot in the beginning, he's listening. And then he just comes in with the most perfect thing to say at the right time. So definitely co-sign that for Casey.
Love to see it.
Sweet. All right. Cool. Well, that was a good warm up. Now we're going to get into the fun stuff, and we're going to start with the integration trap, right? Where most partner managers get set up to fail. And let's start here because I've lived this, right? I know a lot of our listeners have too. You're a partner manager, you've just signed a great tech partner, and now suddenly you're expected to get an integration live with no resources, no roadmap buy-in, and product is already swamped with internal priorities. So for Christina, you've been super vocal about this being a structural problem, not a people problem. So tell us, what's the real issue here?
So I agree. As you were saying that, I think it is a structural problem, right? So I believe there's a lot of companies that think about technology partnerships, and obviously you're thinking about the revenue generation that can bring, new leads, co-marketing, all that good stuff. But there is a piece of technology that underpins that, and having a partnership on paper will only go so far with your shared customers if there isn't the technology to support it. And that technology requires engineering and product management. And it can be outsourced, et cetera, but you really do need to have those resources available to help at least spearhead that initiative, regardless of who does the build. And I find that it's really challenging for partner managers at SaaS companies who don't have alignment from the top to be able to be successful, right? Like if you're an early stage company and you're bringing in your first partner manager, there's got to be executive alignment that says like, hey, in order for Chris to be successful, we are going to have to devote either internal humans or money for external humans. And even if there's money for external humans, you're going to have someone internally that manages it. Chris, you may be able to actually do that, but a lot of partner managers don't have that kind of background. And you'll be set up to fail if you're not able to do that. And when I say sort of top-down support, it's not just the CEO, right? In some instances it is, but it's also the folks on the product and engineering teams. And as companies grow, that becomes more and more important, right? Where you as a partner manager have less direct access to those executives to sort of make your case.
For my first experience into tech partnerships as the first tech partner hire at Gorgeous, literally I didn't come from any relevant tech SaaS background, so I didn't even know what API integrations were. So pretty lucky to get that job. Literally in my first 3 months, I was tasked with, hey, we're going to give you close to $100,000 of budget. We need you to ship the 4 most powerful integrations you can do, and we're going to use this company provider called Pandium. Like literally, that was my first massive project, which was one of the scariest I've ever gone through. It worked out. We ended up shipping some really powerful integrations with Pandium that are still running today, which is fantastic. But to be honest, I was not well equipped for that. Fortunately, I had some great product leadership there, and even our CEO, Romain, he was part of helping ship the very first few integrations native at Gorgeous. So he knew exactly what that playbook looked like, and he was quite helpful for me. So what would you say to any founder, executive level person listening who has that first partner hire coming in and is expecting them to get a few integrations built? How would you kind of coach them to get involved in that early iteration of the tech partner program, knowing how important that playbook will be and scaling in the future?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think it's even before that, right? It's like, why are you hiring a partnership person? Is it because your board just says you need to do that? And if that is the case, what exactly does that partnership person look like? Like you can do a lot of partnership stuff without integrations, right? Like you could do channel, reseller, affiliate, influencer, all that stuff. So maybe you go that direction, but like if you want to do technology partnerships and you're spending money on headcount, why? Like, what are you hoping to get out of this? Do you, as the CEO, as the CMO, the CTO probably doesn't have conviction yet, but do you have conviction about this, that this person is going to be able to move the needle for your business? Does your business really need this person right now? If the answer to that is yes, hopefully by the time they're hiring their first partner manager, there's already some groundwork laid for like, okay, we're hiring a human. Hiring humans is expensive. Even if they're not an expensive human, it's expensive. You're already footing the bill. So like think about how much you're willing to invest, and that will craft what the approach is and what you as a founder or an executive are going to spend your time doing with this person. To your point, I think Gorgeous is a very ecosystem first company from the very beginning. It was always an ecosystem first company, so it's not surprising to me that the founders were like really involved with helping you do it. I think it's a great muscle that you got to build there. I really admire what they've done with the entire ecosystem. All the partner leaders have been incredible. But Now, as we still continue to work with them and others, like we do have product leaders that we work with regularly. We do have a whole team of people at companies that are successful that are there to support us, or there to support the customer, or there to support the partner from a technical and product perspective. So I think it's both making sure that you have conviction as an executive, like, yes, I am willing to foot the bill, put in the time, or go to bat for this person if they're rolling up into you. And then once you determine that, like, yes, this is a thing you actually want to do and there's some money, figuring out what avenue you guys want to go down, right? Is it like you're going to build your own engineering team? That means you probably got to get the CTO involved. How's the relationship there? Do you want to try to outsource some of this stuff, which I could do a whole podcast on that. But it is a method. Do you want to say, hey, partners, you guys have to build into us, which if you're a small company is probably not going to fly. There's just a lot of different avenues, but just throwing in a partner manager who probably has a background in the commercial side of the business and the revenue side of the business to manage this blindly is unlikely to yield you the results that you're looking for and the time that you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was truly a masterclass on a leadership level view of how to approach tech partnerships. And I'm not just blowing smoke. And I'd love to get your take on this, Christina, because I've lived it as both a practitioner in the trenches. I've also advised a ton of companies. My view on it, one of the things I love the most about what you said there is the why. Like, why do you want to even have integrations? If I'm being pretty blunt and tough on a lot of people I've advised, it's almost always commercially driven, right? It's like, oh, our competitor has this integration, or we've heard of other companies like a Gorgeous having success with revenue quota-carrying tech partner managers. So why don't we just go ahead and do that? And I advise founders, C-suites, and that's their mindset as well. Maybe 1 in 10 comes to me and is like, you know what? I want a tech partner program because we really want to become a platform one day. And we know that we are not going to be able to solve for all the use cases our customers want. And so we want to extend the utility and value of our product via, some type of API integration path. And when I hear that, as rare as it is, I'm so refreshed. But are you surprised, and do you agree with that, first of all? Are you surprised at how commercially motivated so many companies are when it comes to tech partner origin, right? Versus what it should be, which is like starting with the customer and building exceptional experiences for them.
I am not surprised because top line revenue, net new revenue is like the goal with startups.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even matter as much what like the churn looks like and what like the CAC of that is. It's just get that number up and up and up, which understood. But I do think it is not, it is, you're ill-informed if you are a small company hiring a partner manager for the first time and you look at a Gorgeous, you look at a ShipBob, you look at like a massive company who's done, not even massive, but who's done a lot of years of work, like many, many years of work to get to the point that they're at and say like, that's what we're going to do. You could say that's what we're going to do in 10 years because that's how long it took those companies to get there. But the idea that that will be the way that you're like a breakout revenue star, I think is ill-conceived. And I also think that thinking about it from the perspective of like plugging gaps and having like complementary features and a good experience for your customer is even more important early on, right? I think it also provides a lot of like validity to your product. If you have these partnerships, it makes your product look more mature. But I think like trying to model after the people that are the very, very best really early can be challenging. I mean, there's just like technical limitations to early stage companies' products that like make it so they cannot be a Gorgeous. They cannot be one of these big companies. I'll also say it's really easy conceptually to point to, hey, if we had that QuickBooks integration, the business would be saved. Like that is the thing we need. We need the partnership, we need the integration. Like that is the thing that's going to make or break our business is like that thing that sits inside that box versus there's this whole big universe of features that we got to try to sift through to figure out how we're going to, right the ship here or accelerate. And I'm not going to say it's like laziness because I don't think it's lazy. I think it's just there's a misperception of like how much that can move the needle, which I think can be a lot, but not everything, and the level of effort that goes into that, right? It's like, oh, if we just build the QuickBooks integration on their app store, everything will be fine. And it's like, it's not just doing that, right? Like this is like weeks, if not months of work, even just for you, Chris, on the commercial side to get through that. So yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about it. I hate seeing folks being set up to maybe not to fail, but to struggle, which is why I have a lot of thoughts about this. Is like folks walking into really small companies that are not ready for someone like you, Chris, to join, and then you are frustrated, they're frustrated, then there's always someone to blame that is not the strategy.
Yeah, no, it's a great segue into the next topic around integration ownership within the org. I know this is something you're quite passionate about, and I think this will help put a bow on this previous conversation. But just to tee you up here, one of the things that I see too frequently is, you have a first partner or leader come in. Typically, they start on the channel, reseller, agency services side on the partnerships front, and then typically tech partners is kind of a lagging kind of sub function that gets started. And then they're basically, it's left to the partnership leaders or maybe the first few partnerships people to decide which integrations are going to get prioritized, which is flawed because so many partner pros are not in what I call customer-facing roles, either on the sales or post-sales side, right? So they really don't even know what the customers are asking for or looking for, right? So I see this too often, and then you ship these integrations that don't get adopted or they're not even valuable. So that's a tee up for you to answer the question, which is what should orgs be doing differently when it comes to integration ownership?
Oh, man. So I love the idea of a platform team. It's becoming more common, but it's still not like ubiquitous. And again, you have to hit like a certain level of maturity for this to even be a thing. But I think if we're talking about ownership, we're kind of getting to that point. Prior to that point, I think honestly, the best team to own the integrations long term, I think, is CX, to be honest. They know the customer best. They can't do the build necessarily, but I love seeing CX getting really involved early on in these things. Platform teams, on the other hand, in my experience, have this really great combination of pre-sales, customer success, and a technical avenue. A lot of companies now are building these platform teams, and it has a product person, maybe an engineer or two, and some like solutions architects, or solutions consultants or something, which are just kind of your secret weapon for anything that is like custom on a platform. Integrations oftentimes fall into that. And so, when we think about ownership of like the build of these integrations, I think it's really important to have somebody that has some sort of systems background. Do they have to be an engineer? Not necessarily. When we've worked with some folks in the past, like we work really heavily with the customer support team because they know how your system works, they know how the partner system works, or at least they know what they've been asked for. But as you continue to grow, I think it's important to have someone with a product-y background that's like overseeing the ownership of that. I personally think that a lot of these things should be considered like a native feature in-house if you're going to use them as like a real growth lever versus the idea of like, hey, just go buy XYZ iPass or go like use something else. You can definitely do that for the long tail stuff, but from, I think, your audience's vantage point, you're not building a partner program on that. And you lose a lot of control. It introduces a lot of additional friction, all that good stuff. So my long answer is I love platform teams. I think they should own it. If you don't have a platform team, I've actually seen over the course of my career, a lot of CX people move into product roles that include integration as a part of like their purview. So I think that can also work really well.
Yeah, no, I definitely co-sign with that view on it. And, people have some pretty polarizing takes on like where tech partnerships, teams, and individuals should sit within an org. And every org kind of does it differently. I don't have a perfect answer. I do think that there should be some form of a squad or an informal team where maybe you're not all formally rolling up to one senior leader per se, like all in CX or all in product, but at least bringing different people from different teams for different functions to one pod or squad, so to speak. And in my early career as a tech partner pro, yes, my quota, my bank account hinged on driving revenue. Like that was my entire quota. I actually had the most amount of engagement and fun, to be honest, working with our product and engineering team, right? And then to finish that point, once we were getting closer to shipping something and getting ready for beta and then GA, I love working with our CX org because they are effectively your first marketing line, right? Because they have direct lines to your customers who are, of course, should be your first beta cohort of users. So I love working with the product and engineering team to get something ready. And then working with the CX, we're like, oh yeah, no problem. We'll just send out an email to our 1,000 customers. And they're, high open rates. They're going to test us. We'll get great feedback. So I had so much more fun that way. So I think there's a lot of tech partner leaders and partner leaders out there who are missing the boat on not aligning more closely with the product engineering team. And then certainly when it comes time to launch and scale, really working closely with the CX leadership. So I'm not sure if that resonates with you, but certainly what I've lived.
Yeah, 100%. And as you were speaking, I was thinking, running in my head, like, what have those platform teams looked like, and what is the reporting structure been at companies that I've seen, both in my own career before Pandium and also more recently with our customers. And all the ones that I can think of, it's sort of a amalgamation of folks that came out of product, folks that came out of the engineering team, and maybe folks that came out of like CSMing, more technical, but they were all like kind of promoted into that platform team. So I'm sure it happens, but like folks are not, in my experience, being hired directly into that department. I think because it requires a lot of, number one, kind of tribal knowledge of your product and your customers, and also it requires that you have a decent amount of political capital within an organization in a lot of instances, because you are like working across functions. And I've seen the teams roll into marketing or CX or P&E or directly to an executive, because to a CEO, because it's like their pet project. I think that matters a lot less if you have folks that have a little bit of experience that are in that team and like know the company well. The reporting structure is important, but folks will just go to the people that they need to go to get stuff done.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great way to wrap up this topic. Like, you're de-risking potential failure and misallocation of resources when you have other people brought in. And as an anecdote from my past, reporting to our VP of Biz Dev and Partnerships, but to be honest, I was getting way more guidance and instruction from our VP of Product, Thomas Trinell, who was invaluable to me in understanding, what's a valuable integration look like, scoping, et cetera. So I think the key takeaway here is, if you leave it up to just one leader or even one IC to set your app and integration strategy, you're going to get what you imagine. So you need more product inclined, CS inclined folks to get into the conversation.
Agreed.
Sweet. All right, cool. We're going to switch gears here. Now we're going to talk about kind of the next step, right? We talked about the why and starting, but let's get into the weeds of building roadmaps, right? And in your kind of in our interview prep, you're talking about building roadmaps without surveys, right? So on that side, this is something you flagged in your prep that I totally agree with, and I think will be helpful for our listeners. You said a lot of partner teams are told to just ask partners what they want to build, right? Send surveys, gather wish lists, and then rank them by logos, just to paraphrase. But you've called BS on that approach, as you call BS on a lot of things, which we love. What's wrong with how most integration roadmaps are built today?
So I hate sending surveys to like customers. And not in every capacity, but for this specifically, it's like this sort of open-ended product thing of like, what do you want? And what people say they want in that moment is not necessarily what they will actually use, right? In the absence of you being able to tell through magic all the systems that your customers or prospects are using, which is like very unlikely, I actually think implementing a really solid way to track on calls and in emails en masse what folks are asking for without asking them directly is the best way to do this, right? And I think there's some that will force rank, right? So in my experience, what folks end up doing is they build their sort of long tail roadmap, which we can talk about like ways to do that. And then there's just these either strategic ones that come in that you're like, we just got to do this because reasons, or there's like a big customer or two that like really wants this thing. And it's like, hey, to hit our quarterly revenue goal, like we've got to do this. We're going to force rank it. We're just going to like put it at the top, and that's what's going to start next. And I think that's a totally reasonable thing to do, right? Especially if you're a growing like startup size company, you have to do that. And I also think that saying that out loud, if you're working with a roadmap, is really important to just say for your partner leaders that are listening, like, hey, there will be times when we are going to deviate from this, because a lot of times companies and engineers and product teams really like to have a roadmap and like stick to that roadmap. Doing this does not align with that, of being like, oh, well, you want NetSuite? Sorry, like we said we were going to do that in 2 quarters and we're not going to do it. And you're like, I need this for the business to succeed. So I think setting the expectation up front when it comes to the roadmap that like this is subject to change. I don't think that you want to be like switching these little guys out in and out willy-nilly to close small deals. Like, you'll have to work with your revenue leader, I think, to prioritize some of this stuff. But this goes back to political capital and like figuring out the best way to finagle this. But when it comes to the sort of like longer tail roadmap, I love seeing in your CRM a spot for like integration request and making it a required field so that your sales reps, maybe they're SDRs or maybe it's CAEs, like they have to put something there, even if it's 0. Like, but making it a part of the conscious conversation during discovery. Same thing with CX, right? If it's like they're on the phone or they're doing a CSM is a great person to do this, to noodle on it. And your CSM should also kind of have a relationship with your customer and they can get a sense of like, you're asking for this, but like, what are you really asking for? To be able to feed that back to your product or your platform team or whoever is prioritizing these things. I just think surveys, in my opinion, don't give reliable results. And the last thing you want to do is go make a case to your leadership team about why you should have money to build this thing, build it, and then find out that like, you know, the survey was filled with lies. And those people they were being aspirational in their usage.
Yeah, that's a great approach. I mean, the other flaw with the surveys is imagine your customer has anywhere between 100 to 500 to 1,000 employees. That's one person answering the survey, right? It's obviously biased towards what they know and understand, and they could have limitations there. So it's definitely a flawed approach. I think that was another masterclass by Christina on how to even approach collecting the right signals. And her best advice there was it shouldn't be something you actually have to like actually ask, although there's great places and times for that, certainly for your more enterprise customers that will obviously come up in your quarterly business reviews. But how can you collect as many signals as possible kind of passively in the background? There's all kinds of sales intelligence tools like Gong, right? Very easy for product leadership to be able to leverage those insights for both prospect and customer calls. I'm using great tools like a product board, which we had used at Gorgeous, which was great. And we've used it religiously. So it actually was really easy. It's not perfect, but to be able to go in there and kind of stack rank integrations that are absent, and then you couple on the business impact side of things to kind of create a roadmap, I think that's helpful. Sorry, we want to jump in there?
Yeah. Did you guys open that up to customers too? Was that public or was it just internal?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we had a like gorgeous.com/roadmap. Anyone can go to that and you can kind of see what the roadmap is. That's powered by Product Board. We had a Chrome extension, so customers could submit product feedback as well. Everyone at the company was encouraged and incentivized eventually to actually log these things. To your point, you have to like systematize and ingrain that in your DNA of like, hey, customer feedback is gold. Whether you ask for it or you just notice it, you need to document it. Especially now with AI analysis as a layer, like if you just have data, you can query against that so efficiently. And then the final thing I want to say on kind of prioritizing the integration roadmap is it can't just be the partnerships people driving the bus on this. I think the one thing I'd love to get your opinion on is the product people know your product best and they understand the roadmap and own the roadmap, but they don't necessarily have the proximity to the customers and they don't have proximity to the ecosystem of partners to even know what is possible, right? So that's their one kind of weak area. Whereas on the partnership side, we don't have the technical chops, right? We don't own the product roadmap, but we do have access to the ecosystem. We're seeing firsthand what's happening, what's changing from a platform and capability perspective. So in your view, just to double down, why is it so important for product leadership and biz dev leadership to really work closely? Because they both kind of have what each other doesn't. But you need both. You need the technical chops, the product vision and ownership, but you also need the market insights to kind of really set this thing correctly.
You're absolutely right. It's super important to have both. And I would argue that product managers should talk to customers on a pretty regular basis. And or listen to sales calls and or go on QBRs and sit with the CSM a lot. I think that's a whole different conversation about that specific thing, listen to your customers, who's responsible for that. But I don't think it has to necessarily be some big process, right? Of Chris, you hear a thing, you fill out a ticket, it goes to them, they review it, they send it back. Honestly, what I've seen be successful is people just get together once a week or once every 2 weeks and sit down and are hey, this is the stuff I'm hearing. Maybe it's hey, I don't know if Acme does this. Like, I don't know how this works. Is this something that's even possible? And the product team can say like, yes, no, we didn't do that because of this. This is really cool. You guys can also flag like, these are some great calls. It would be really good for you to listen to. There's probably ways if you're a 5,000 person company to like create a process around that. But really at the end of the day, you're both trying to learn from each other, and it's really difficult to like digitize that in the beginning, in my experience. With that said, I mean, I don't think it's, and I've been on the receiving end of this, it's not good to just have like the sales team like wandering over to the desk or blow up the slacks of the PMs constantly being like, can we do this? Can we integrate this? Can we integrate this? Like there should be a process where it goes through maybe you as the partnership leader, or there's a queue or something like that. But, I think integrations and the whole ecosystem concept touches like basically every part of an organization except for HR and like accounting maybe. You're talking to CX, you got the revenue side of the house, you've got biz dev folks, you've got product engineering, everybody is involved in this. So I think spending the time to sit down for an hour every 2 weeks to have the conversations is going to be helpful for everybody and cut down on the thrash, right?
We don't have time to jump into it, but you referenced in the intake just around how like having sales control things, it can be scary. And it's scary to me having seen at Series B, C, D, E level companies where AEs are just allowed to just go into a product-led channel and just say, hey, like just lost this $50K deal because we didn't have this. Can we get this slotted? And like product teams will actually like heed that. Like they'll really just kind of blindly trust in this. So anyways, we can spend a whole episode on just that. But point is like, collecting the insights is valuable, and you don't want to discourage people like sales from bringing these forward, but you need to back that with a proper process of how to like consolidate information, analyze it for what it's worth, and then inform how you kind of iterate on the next versions of your roadmap.
I agree. And I think, again, like this is with every kind of feature or product. Integrations are easy to point to. But it's really, it's cheap and easy to be like, oh, that's the deal because of this. And I'm always like, did you really lose a deal because of that? Like, maybe you did. And I think actually the integrations are like a really easy thing to point to because it's like, do you have it? Yes, no. Versus like some
binary.
Versus like some other features of your product where it's like, maybe they didn't really know or whatever. It's more squishy. But I always push back on that idea of like, if we only had this one thing, everything would be great. And I think pinning it on partnership folks who already are trying to herd so many cats and work with like such disjointed, nebulous data is not helpful. It's like one team, one dream. Let's all try to do this together.
I love that. And maybe it's because they didn't, follow up for like 2 weeks. Maybe they had some culpability, but that's another episode.
Dude, we can talk about it.
Cool. Transition to our last topic. It's a nice segue, which is all about alignment, right? And GTM and product teams don't actually align super well, as we know. So everyone talks about cross-functional alignment, but very few partner teams actually get it correct. When you look at the product and partnerships clash, where they clash the most, what's usually behind that in your experience?
I think some of it can come down to like that kind of blame game that we were just describing, where it's like,
right.
I can't do my job. I can't do my job. Like I have a roadmap I have to stick to. I'm getting pressure from my CTO to stick to that roadmap. And you're like, well, I have a revenue goal I have to stick to. And like, I don't have any support. So even if you're in a great environment and like the C-suite is all aligned, like the CRO, the CMO, the CTO, the chief product officer, CPO, everyone is like, yes, we want to solve this problem. If it's not like trickling down, there can still be a lot of friction, right? And if it's not trickling down in terms of KPIs and goals, that can also cause a lot of friction. Like, hey, we're going to say, yeah, we fully support Chris and his team and we're going to build the integrations he needs, but then we're going to incentivize the product team, even if it's not financially, their KPIs are going to be all about this static roadmap that we have. Like, that's going to create friction. I also think and this might be less common now, but there's always, I think in tech, or in my experience in tech, has been this sort of like the tech team and the not tech team. It's like, you guys are the tech team. You guys are not the tech team. You as the non-tech team, there's like this mythical beast that like I'm not allowed to speak to and they don't want to help me. And then the tech team is like, those are just the salespeople. That's just customer support. Like they don't know what they're talking about. And I want to see that a lot less. I think maybe we are seeing it a lot less as like there's more kind of democratization of coding and that type of stuff, and more people graduating from high school being able to code and knowing comp sci. But I think there is a little bit of that, right? Like Chris, you can like wander over to your PM's desk and be like, oh, I told him we could build NetSuite. And they're like, why would you say that? Like, you have no idea how hard that is. And I think the way that you start to chip away at that and build trust is through that communication, right? Is by Chris, like you or people that work for you wanting to learn from the product people and the product people wanting to learn from what you guys are seeing out in the market. And, at the end of the day, if any of us, if you're running a business, the goal is to make money. And the way that you make money usually is by solving hard problems with technology, right? Like that's how we make money. And if the hard problem you're trying to solve is not the integration problem and like that is not going to bring in the dollars, then maybe it's not great to have a partner manager at that point if your own tech needs the help, right? But if we agree that that's going to bring in the dollars or we like want to give that a shot, everyone in the org should be behind that, right? And if they're not, that's like a larger problem, in my opinion. We could talk about that too, but I don't think we have enough time.
Yeah, that's great. It's really valuable content, especially for the mastermind community that I lead, where we have a lot of early to mid-stage folks who come to me citing challenges in getting alignment with product leadership, getting buy-in for some of these things. So I had a whole series of questions for you. You seemingly kind of chipped away at a lot of them, but I'll distill this topic down to one final question, which is, okay, if I'm a senior tech partner manager and I really believe in a specific integration, I've done my homework, I've got some good insights, I've talked to the partner, I've even talked to some customers. It seems like, okay, this has legs. I believe in this. I really want to help bring this to market. Given your position as a CEO, where you're the final decision maker, so to speak, what's the best advice you would give someone in a senior tech partner manager role who wants to bubble up a big idea through the ladder, so to speak, to ultimately get this approved? What would you advise that person to do?
I mean, I think it depends on your leadership, right? And like what their management style is. It never hurts, and I know you, Chris, to like come fully prepared with all of your research and your PowerPoint and like all this stuff. But let's pretend that like all things being equal, it's nice and polished. Honestly, and this is what I've done in my entire career prior to starting this company, and it's kind of what I did here too, which was just like, I really think that we should do this. I'm willing to put in as much work as I possibly can. I will do whatever you guys think that I can do, but like, I just want to try. Like, let's just try it. Can we just try it? And if your company is at a place where like, you didn't have headcount for this thing, like you really don't have time, like you don't have runway, then like the answer might just be no. And the trust and the making the case, like none of that will really make a difference. But I do think that making it like kind of banking on your own personal relationship with these folks, even if you're new and you don't have like the sort of background political capital. If you're new, they just hired you. So they hired you for a reason. And saying, like, I am willing to do the work. This isn't like me like lobbing it over and being like, cool, now it's product engineering's problem. And like, if it doesn't work out, I can blame them when I don't hit my number. I think really being like, I will help manage this if you want me to. Like, what do you need from me to make this possible for us to try? And I do think also if it's like your first kind of foray into whatever this is, a big project, a small project, any projects for that organization, framing it as like, let's do this experiment and trying to figure out a way to make it an experiment, right? Like not coming in guns blazing, being like, I need $500,000 in 6 months to do this thing. But like, let's do like some incremental things that you feel strongly you're going to win on, that you can then start to build that trust internally. But I don't know, I think like kind of like falling on the sword and just being like, I'm willing to do as much work as you guys will let me. What can I do to make this happen? I really want to try it. Let's figure out how we can make this happen. I don't know. I think it's, as I said to you, I think before we started today, I am horrendous at PowerPoint decks. Like, do not give me a graph. Like, I am just not a visual learner in that way. So my entire career has been exactly what I just said. Just being like, look, I have a spidey sense. I really think this is going to be a game changer for us. Like, I have some data. It's probably looks terrible, but like, just give me 3 months and like, let's try.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's so many great snippets. I think this will be one of the most played back segments of this episode because this is such a common challenge. I totally co-sign with everything you said there, particularly the approach of an experimentalist mindset to these things. I come from an academic background, so it's been more natural for me, but really, starting on small scale, saying, hey, look, big picture, I think this could be, a total game changer, but we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket now. So how can we start with a pilot test, so to speak, that obviously if we hit certain green light checkpoints, will then, justify further investment to take this to the finish line. But what Christina is referencing on the experimentalist side of things is a clear hypothesis. right? To me, in my opinion, having received so many no's from more senior people than myself, I've learned the hard way. The first thing you really want to nail is the hypothesis, the why, right? It doesn't have to just be exciting, right? It can even be a little bit boring, but it has to be sound and has to be grounded in reality. Then you also have to have the method, what are you actually going to do, right? That's the methodology. How will you actually measure? I'll double click on that one. I think in my experience, that's another reason you get no's is you don't actually present a way of how will you actually measure if this is successful or not. What metrics will dictate whether or not this was a success, and literally how will you measure? And then the final piece is a conclusion and postmortem, right? I think, in reporting to some CEOs, maybe Christina, you'll agree with this. If you actually get the resources and you do the thing and you don't come back with accountability report on it, that's a quick way to burn trust. So you can really ingratiate yourself further, even if it doesn't work, and especially if it doesn't work, by coming back with a really robust postmortem of what happened, what did you learn, and what would you do differently, you could do it again, right? That's just my view on it, Christina. I'm not sure if you have a similar different view on kind of the experimental approach to these things.
Yeah, I mean, I love a postmortem and after action. And I think the way that I've actually seen that be really fun is obviously you can give it to your executive sponsor, whoever it is, in granular detail, but it's also really fun to turn this potentially into a lunch and learn or a brown bag. And then you're also exposing the rest of the company, not just to yourself, but also to how you are managing this kind of project. And hey, we wanted to build our first whatever thing. And this is what I did. And this was my hypothesis. And this is the data that I gathered. And then this was how the process went. These are the things that we learned. And now we're really prepared to, really crush it with XYZ thing. Again, I think the more you as a human can be out there in front of your organization, being seen as a helpful person, a smart, helpful person that wants to, with a lot of humility, just share the things that you have learned, the better positioned you will be. I don't think, Chris, I mean, you and I have known each other for years. I don't think anybody would say, I'm scared to talk to Chris, or Chris is a real turd. I don't like Chris. Regardless of the data, you could bring turd-filled data, or I'm sure you don't, but or it's turd-filled PowerPoint. But the fact that your demeanor and I feel like you want to help me and I want to help you, right? I think that that soft skill is so valuable, especially when you're trying to make waves within an org and you're trying to get buy-in from so many folks.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great way to wrap. And it reminds me of an interview we did with Rob Moyer, head of GTM partnerships at Gong recently, where I was asking him about the characteristics he looks for in hiring A+ players. Empathetic people, like what you just mentioned, people who care to be a good teammate, I think is one thing. But I think the other piece of that, what he said, is curiosity. And that is, to me, is so critical. If you have curious people who are talented and will work hard, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get good results there. So anyone listening to this, what Christina just mentioned, hearing it directly from a CEO, show up at your org, try to be as visible as you can, try to be as helpful as you can. And the last thing I'll add to that is just be accountable as well. I love this brown bag kind of lunch and learn style post-mortem, right? And it's scary when you don't get the results you want, especially when you're in quota carrying roles. But in my experience as both an IC and as a leader, when my team comes to me when they had shitty results and were super honest about it and had a clear post-mortem and a clear kind of action plan on how to test it again differently, that to me is when my respect for them goes up more versus when sometimes when they come in with a great result. Because a great result, sometimes you get a little lucky, sometimes it's random given the variance, but a shitty result that you're able to action on thoughtfully, that is not random. So I have a lot of respect for people who approach it that way.
Yeah, it's very thoughtful. And I'll close with one of the things that when we're thinking about hiring here at Pandium, partnerships or otherwise, what I look for going into our late stage candidates is, as you said, curiosity, because we're doing a lot of things for the first time. So experience is good, but who cares? Confidence and humility, because I think confidence without humility or humility without confidence creates
Dangerous.
It's dangerous, right? It either creates folks that no one wants to work with or folks that have a hard time advocating for themselves. But the combination of those three things, having the confidence to know when you're right, but the humility to know when you're wrong and the humility to ask for help is the trifecta that makes a great team member in any role. Engineering, marketing, HR, partnerships, sales, those three things, I think, will take you far in being able to cultivate those. And I think a brown bag post-mortem is a great way to show humility and confidence.
I love that. Well, for any hiring managers or people looking to get hired, I think that's great tactical advice. But look, Christina, this was amazing. Covered a lot from integration pitfalls to actually how to get product on site to rethink things. I know a lot of people will be pulling takeaways from this. Real quick, where can folks follow your work and learn more about what you're building at Pandium?
So you can obviously find me on LinkedIn. I'm sure my name will be on this video. And check out pandium.com. We have a great blog. We have our own podcast. We've got videos. We've got all kinds of interactive stuff. So pandium.com/blog would be our blog. But yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, and I link to all kinds of cool stuff that we're writing about.
Amazing. Cool. Well, appreciate you, Christina. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you, Chris.